Hey, I'm Alex Akhavan, and this video is going to be a little bit about the stages of production and specifically what my role as an entertainment lawyer is during each one. So, I think to start off, it's usually getting the rights to something. Often as simple as acquiring the rights to a book, but it can be anything these days. It can be a podcast, it can be, a YouTube channel or a short. It can be even a theme park ride like Pirates of the Caribbean. So a lot of what we do is acquire rights and we do what's called chain of title review. So we see, okay, you're the book author, and we just ask a bunch of questions. Has anyone else gotten the rights to the book? Has anyone tried to make anything off this book before? Did you work with anyone else on this book? And often, it's pretty clear. Sometimes it's really complicated. Sometimes, you're dealing with multiple books written, decades ago. One thing I might get into in this video series is copyright law. The main copyright law we use now is the Copyright Act of 1976, but sometimes we're doing rights to films or books that were written before that. So we're dealing with the 1909 Copyright Act. So it can get very, very specific, but usually the first step is acquiring the rights. Some things are original IP, intellectual property. So, you write a script and no one's made anything like that. And so there's no real rights to acquire. You just hire someone to make a script. But often, especially in the modern times, a lot of what we watch is based on something else. And so we want to make sure, step one, do we have all the rights? And, what can we do with those rights? Then we enter development. Acquiring rights is part of development, and basically development is everything that happens before the cameras roll. So we're usually hiring a writer, we're often hiring a director, and obviously the producers. So everyone basically still brainstorming, still you have an idea, you get the rights so you can keep refining the idea, and then you hire someone to write a script. You read the script, see if you like it, maybe they rewrite the script. You go back and forth, and each of these is covered in these contracts. So once we get the rights, a lot of what we do is negotiate contracts with the directors and the writers and the producers. So eventually, and development can take years, and it's all the creatives basically seeing what they have. Is it working? And a lot of development isn't just, would this be a cool movie? Would this be a cool idea? It's also budgeting. Can we make this? And also, where are we going to film this? And there's a lot of other things that we might get into too in this video series, like production incentives. Sometimes if you film in a foreign country or in certain states, those states or those countries will say, hey, we'll actually fund half of your budget or 10% of your budget, however much, if you film here. The idea being you're going to bring a whole film crew. It's good advertising for our country where we are. At a bare minimum, you're going to be buying a lot of things in this state. So we want to incentivize people to come here. All of these things get handled during development. And so by the end of the development stage, you know what the script is, who's directing it, who the producers are, where you're filming it, how much it should cost to film. Obviously, things often go over budget. But that's everything you need. And then entering production, you might have heard of green light. Green light is, yes, we're making this happen. This is no longer an idea. This is going to be produced. And at least with live action, it's a pretty clear line where you commence principal photography, basically when the cameras roll. So the big difference for me when I'm doing development work versus production work is now I'm dealing with the actors and the cast. So now, because sometimes you might attach an actor at the beginning saying, hey, we want to sell this script, we want to sell this idea, and, we have a director, we have a writer, but we also want everyone to know that, we have this huge celebrity who wants to play like the lead. So occasionally these deals will happen in development, but usually the difference is that you handle them during production. So it's everything you need for when the cameras start rolling. And production can be anywhere from negotiating with the cast, but also like all of the crew. Everyone needs some sort of contract. Usually we kind of have simpler ones for people who are doing the similar role. But everything, hair, makeup, wardrobe, everyone has a contract. Everyone is working on things. They're renting cars for a scene. They're renting props for a scene. All of these have contracts, and that's often what entertainment lawyers do. We review those. And with production, the speed is really, really fast. With development, yes, it's still pretty fast, but you're not so much. Everyone is moving fast in development because people want to get paid. They say, hey, I want to turn in a script. I want to get paid for this script. But with production, if you fall too far behind, every day production falls behind is more money. So it can be really, really expensive. So that's why the production stage can be very, very intense. It's just constant go, go, go. If you're on the scene, if you're doing production services, or if you're an actor, it's a tight schedule. Everyone's got to stick by the schedule. And during development, you've sorted out how you expect this to go. We're going to film these scenes this week and this scenes that week. And, maybe you need 8 weeks, 12 weeks, however long. You've scheduled that time with all your actors. And then eventually you got everything. The director has filmed everything. Production ends, and we enter what's called the final stage, which is post-production. There's not a ton that we need to do during post-production as lawyers. There's the editors, but they've usually have contracts already. But a big part of what we do after production is distribution agreements. Okay, so now you have a finished film. It's being edited. It's almost finished. Where is it going to be? So sometimes we'll do deals with, big studios like Warner Brothers, Netflix, HBO. Well, HBO is owned by Warner Brothers, but, Amazon, Disney, all of them, they're what we call distributors, studios, distributors. Often they're also producing their own content, and it'll be, often in theaters, not necessarily these days. It can also just be direct to streaming. But the question is, okay, how are we going to get this out to the world is basically what distribution comes down to. And sometimes we do what's called like an acquisition, where, so maybe it's privately funded. Someone's like, hey, I haven't gone to a studio yet, but, I funded this myself, or I raised money myself. I hired the actors myself. I filmed it. This is ready to go. This is a finished film with no distribution. So that's why film festivals are such an important part of the film industry, because often they're independent films looking for distribution. So a lot of studios will go to these festivals, watch a bunch of movies, say, I love this movie, I want to be the one to distribute that movie. So a good example is the film Coda, which Apple acquired, and it won Best Picture. Apple saw it, said, this finished film is great, we want it on our platform, and then they pay, and that's typically how the financiers get their money back, is through distribution. And then after that, we get into, net profits, which are usually divided up in the contract. So if the film is very successful, then maybe the director, the writer, whoever negotiated for what we call back end, they might get stuff. But all of that comes in the distribution phase, which happens post-production. So I like to think of it as development. Green light means we enter production. Production ends, we enter post-production. And once the film is finished, we look for distribution if we don't have it already.